Oh my God, everybody. Hello, I am Jasmine Henley Brown. Welcome to our first pod session. My heart is beating like a million times a minute because our guest today is not only one of the most recognizable voices in podcasting, but she's one of my favorite hosts. I found her first show, I want to say it was the summer of 2019 when I was living in New York and I was a real estate agent and I would be on the train all the time. And if you know me, you know I hate taking the trains because they get stuck, you're underground, they're crowded, it's just a big mess. But I would listen to this show like all the time, and it's a true crime show, but it used to calm me down and it would make my train rides, my bus rides really, really pleasant. So I'm super, super excited to have on our first pod session the host of Crime Junkie and the creator of Audiochuck, Ashley Flowers. Welcome, Ashley.
Hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good.
That's good. Thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, it's our first pod session. I just want to kind of talk to people who work in various pockets of podcasting, and you're the first person that I thought of. So I'm super happy to have you today.
Oh, well, thank you for thinking of me. That's so kind.
Of course. So like I just intro Crime Junkie. Like I said, I've been listening since I discovered it in 2019. It used to help me on my train rides and bus rides when I was living in New York and I was a real estate agent. I want to start there. Like how did Crime Junkie start?
It got born out of like a couple of things that like I really got interested in, right? So I started listening to podcasts in like 2014 and I was obsessed. Like I could not get enough. I've been a crime junkie since I was little. My mom made me a crime junkie. And so when I found podcasting, I wanted to consume every true crime podcast that was out there. And there was a specific kind of show that I was looking for that I just couldn't find. And I kept waiting, I kept looking, wanting someone to make it. And in the meantime, when that's going on, I was also on the board of directors for Crime Stoppers of Central Indiana. And when I was working with them, one of the things they charged me with, I was the like youngest person on the board. And they said, a lot of people your age don't know what we are. They don't know about the program. Can you do any kind of brand awareness? So I kind of married these two things. I thought Crime Junkie was going to be this cool, like local Indiana thing. And we advertised for Crime Stoppers a lot. I finally decided, maybe I can make the show I can't find. And I was just so blown away by how it blew up. And so not only did we, get to promote Crime Stoppers in the beginning, but the amount of nonprofits we've gotten to work with even outside of that has been amazing.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. I did hear some of the origin story, like just from listening to the show, but I definitely wanted to just talk to people just in case they haven't heard the particular episodes when you and Britt talk about how Crime Junkie was born. I did have kind of a deeper question. So like you delve into so many true crime stories on Crime Junkies and like various other shows that you're a part of or that you've created with Audiochuck. Does that affect your mental health at all? Because like I remember like the first conversation that you and I had was when I was thinking about like jumping into true crime. And as I was looking up the stories, I was like, I like to listen to them because I can turn them off. I don't know if I could like handle
like live in them,
recording them. Yeah. So how does it affect your mental health, if at all?
If you would have asked me like a year or so ago, I probably would have said no. Like, again, I've been consuming all this stuff for so long. But I think that's changed, and it's not the gruesome nature of the stories. I think that has really weighed on my mental health. It's kind of twofold. Lately, I think that what's weighed on me has been just how much I don't trust the justice system anymore, and how it's very hard to feel like you can get a fair shake. And I mean, we tell so many stories of how things just go wrong, especially as, a crime junkie. But as I get into Counterclog, we're doing a wrongful conviction case. Like, I think that is what weighs on me more than anything else is like bad things are going to happen everywhere. But to know that like a lot of the safeguards we thought were in place aren't really there. Like that's what's weighed on me. And then I think the more that I'm in this, it's again, not the gruesome nature of things, but just how serious the subject matter is. I sometimes find it hard to engage with my friends in the way that I used to. The stuff that was important, that seemed so big and so heavy doesn't feel like that anymore. But it still is for them. And in trying to understand my friends and what's important to them while still weighing like this new heaviness I found about life, like sometimes it makes it hard to engage a little bit, and it's changed my relationship with people.
Yeah, no, I can see how that would happen. It's like people go through, like, we're the biggest people or person in our own universe, right? So the issues that we go through, we think they are super serious, but then you're reporting on like serial killers and like missing children.
Yeah, people who lost their loved ones.
Right.
And I'm like, God, traffic this morning isn't bad. Like, whatever that thing is, that feels so big in your life. And like which has given me wonderful perspective as well. When I think feels like things are ending, things can always be much, much worse.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's definitely, you got to have that balance. So, and then like I mentioned Audiochuck, and you have a couple of different shows. Like Counterclock just started the second season. You have Full Body Chills, which is one of my favorites. Like I'm so excited. Oh my gosh, like spooky season. That's my season. My birthday's in October, so I'm like a total fall like
I love it.
Lover. So I'm really excited about that. And I think I saw on Apple Podcasts that you have a new show coming.
Yeah, we have a couple. So yeah, we've got Full Body Chills is coming out. Counterclock 2 season 2 is already out. We've got another show coming out October 14th called Anatomy of Murder. That's coming out. We just did a press release that we have another show coming out in November called Red Collar, and Anatomy of Murder and Red Collar are going to be weekly shows. And we're also looking at doing additional mini series. Like there was a big press announcement that we're partnering with Justine Harmon, who is a wonderful podcaster, to do a mini series on what she's calling the OC Swingers, this big case that's unfolding out in California that I'm super excited to cover.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm gonna be keeping my ears to the streets for that, because that sounds like interesting already. You also do two shows that I listen to all the time: Very Presidential, which I know is a limited series, and then Supernatural with Parcast. How did you hook up with them?
So yeah, that kind of unfolded after like a long relationship. So back in the day when I was smaller and before Parcast had sold to Spotify, I actually just reached out to Parcast about doing some cross promoting, because we were, about the same place in the charts. I thought we had a similar audience, and through that, I got connected directly to Max Cutler, who is the founder of Parcast. And he and I developed a friendship. We did some cross promoting, we did some stuff professionally together. And it was nice to, there's so few people in the industry, right? Podcasting is just now kind of blooming. So to have somebody who's like been through the same thing and independently made their own network, we had a lot in common. We stayed in touch. And then once he sold to Spotify and he really had like the resources to like expand like crazy and build out his network, he had a couple of opportunities that he thought fit right into my wheelhouse, and we were able to make it work. And it was a really exciting partnership.
Yeah, Very Presidential is so, because like I like American history, right? Yeah. But there's so many things that I learned on that show about the past presidents that like I didn't know and like did not want to know.
Yeah, no. I'm glad that you like it though.
What did you say?
I said, I'm glad that you like it though. That one has been like my pet project for a long time. That's been a show I wanted to make, and I really was so happy to have the team at Parcast to like help me like bring that to life.
Yeah, no, that one's amazing. Supernatural, I love, because like I'm totally into all conspiracy theories and everything. I made a horrible mistake. I was getting ready to, or I was planning a trip to go see my sister. So I just needed to see her. Our parents have been sick this year, and we just haven't seen each other with everything going on. And I listened to the Malaysia Airlines flight.
Oh my!
So I was like, now I have to like postpone my trip because there's no way I can fly with that.
I was gonna say, were you gonna have to fly, or were you able to drive?
No. So I'm like, I'm gonna come another time and see you. Like, Delta, the airlines have been really flexible. I'm like, I need to postpone this trip. Like,
because I listened to a podcast. Oh
no! Yeah, exactly. And I was like in the gym listening to it, and I just stopped my workout, and I'm like, why are you listening to this? Now you can't fly anywhere. It was so scary, but super, super entertaining nonetheless. So yeah, those are some really cool deals that you have in the works. I do want to kind of rewind a little bit. I meant to ask how Audiochuck came to be. Like, was this something that you started before or after Crime Junkie?
I founded Audiochuck actually before. So I knew how much work the podcast was going to be. And so I was obviously working full time. I worked full time the entire first year that we had Crime Junkie. So when I decided I wanted to like kind of start this venture, I said I would give myself a year basically to make it a full-time job. Otherwise, I just knew I couldn't sustain it. Because, when I was doing it, I was like 100 hours a week. It was just crazy. I barely saw my friends and family. So I founded the company and then started the podcast with the dream that that Crime Junkie at least would be big enough to be my full-time job. And then I had always had the dream of doing at least some mini series beyond that. And so I always knew I wanted it to be more than one show. I didn't know how big. I still don't know that I know how big I want the network to get, but it's exciting to kind of figure it out as I go.
Yeah, well, it's definitely huge. Like, anytime I talk to people who don't really listen to podcasts like that, they're kind of familiar. I'm like, have you heard of Crime Junkie? They're like, oh yeah, I know that. So
Okay.
you're definitely outgrowing. And that's also what I wanted to ask you about, because again, just going back to the first conversation that I ever had with you, you told me something really interesting about how you marketed Crime Junkie, like how you got it to grow and you were leaving business cards everywhere. Can you just tell people viewing that? Because I think the other thing with this is I want it to be really educational, and people come to me and they're like, how do I start a podcast? How do I grow a podcast? And I think that tidbit that you shared with me was like really interesting. Do you mind sharing that with our viewers?
Of course, yeah. So Crime Junkie, I mean, it's important to know like who your audience, right? Like, do you have a podcast for like a very niche group of people, or is this like broad? And I knew mine was broad. And I knew my audience was me, mostly women around my age who are interested in true crime. And if someone was around my age, they like true crime, I really thought they'd like our show. So I, at the time, was in sales, and I would drive around all the time. I would travel. I went to like Vistaprint or something, and I printed off these like square cards and then I would keep like Scotch tape in my purse. And when I would travel, every like rest stop I would stop at, I would tape the cards into like all the bathroom stalls. Whenever I went out with my friends, I'd go to the bathroom and like tape it in the stalls. Like I knew women were going to be there. I would leave it out like at Starbucks. I would leave it at restaurants. I would leave those everywhere. And I remember going to a podcast movement, like my very first year, and someone had come out of a speech or whatever, and that's one of the things they said is like print out cards and leave them everywhere. And that person was so upset, like, oh, that's such terrible advice, like who needs that? And I'm like, no, like it actually works. I bought magnets, and I put magnets on the side of my car, so everywhere my car drove, people would see my podcast logo, because it's really just about getting your name in front of as many people as possible. And so like get creative in how you do that. And it's not expensive, right? Like when you're starting, you can do it in really economical ways. So I was just like guerrilla marketing everywhere, like Crime Junkie stickers are all over the place.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I think that's what it takes to grow a show, especially to the size that Crime Junkie has grown. A lot of it has been word of mouth, obviously, but that's after like I think the initial, getting the brand out there and just familiarizing people with the show. And it's an investment for sure. You know what I mean? Like I know some people when they start podcasting, because it's so easy to do, if you have a mic and a computer in like a quiet room, you can do it. But I think it takes just thinking outside of the box as far as marketing is concerned, because there's so many podcasts now. Like it's to get lost. And on that vein, since there are so many podcasts, what are some of your favorite shows to listen to?
So I am always a sucker for like mini series. So a lot of what I love, comes and goes. I think right now the stuff that I like wait patiently to download. There's a show called Something Was Wrong, which has been going on for a few seasons, that I love, by Tiffany Reese. I'm actually really into All American. They're doing a mini series on Tiger Woods right now that like I'm not really big into sports, but I'm like really digging this mini series. And then I just recently found, this show's been going on for a long time, but Britt actually introduced me to the show called Mega, which is hilarious. It's this satire podcast about a fake mega church. Which is especially relatable to Britt and I, because that's like the environment that we like grew up in and came from. So listening to these people kind of poke fun at like the world we grew up in has been entertaining.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I don't know why I expected all of your favorites to be like hardcore true crime stuff.
Yeah, I know. I think a lot of people do. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I listen to every true crime podcast that comes out because I'm interested, because I want to know what's going on in my space. But to the point of like my mental health stuff, like every once in a while I need an escape that isn't so true crime. Something Was Wrong is pretty dark. It's a lot about not physical abuse, but like more mental abuse in relationships and like gaslighting, controlling. So to me, that's like very much like got a true crime spin. But sometimes I need just something a little bit lighter, since all I'm doing all day, every day is true crime.
Yeah, for sure. My like go-to for just like light stuff is Ty Asks Why. It's hosted it's hosted by an 11-year-old boy named Ty.
Oh, I think I haven't listened to it yet. I think I've seen it on Apple.
You have to. It's so like he is so smart that it like blows my mind, but it's so like adorable at the same time. So I use it partially for like educational purposes because he talks about some of the stuff. I'm like, I didn't know this, but then it's just so adorable that I'm like, this is such like light listening when I just need like a pick me up. So
Okay,
that's
I'll totally have to try it.
And then cool. So yeah, you've definitely made a name for yourself with Crime Junkie, with Audiochuck. I just have one last question. Like, where do you see podcasting going? Like, we're 16 years from like the very first podcast that was uploaded, and we're about like 5 years into like the boom, 5 or 6 years into podcasting being this like uber popular. Like, it's the it girl now.
Yeah.
Where do you see the industry going from here?
I don't know. It's amazing to me. It reminds me a lot of like technology or when like the iPhone came out, right? Like it took a long time to get there. And now all of a sudden it's happening really fast. So changes are happening, minute by minute, day by day. I feel like, companies are acquiring one another. The biggest trend I see happening is these larger and larger organizations buying and gathering up these like smaller independent companies and building these bigger and bigger powerhouses. And, it's great. With that comes more resources into the industry. It, puts more eyes on the industry. The only thing that I say to people that I think that could have a negative thing is if you're thinking about starting a podcast, like now's the time to do it. Eventually, I believe it's going to get to the point a lot like TV where like you have to be partnered with a network. You have to know the right people. You have to find your in. Where what's beautiful about podcasting, what's always been wonderful is anyone can do it, right? Like it was a system that allowed a girl with no following in the middle of Indiana to like come and have like a name in the space. And I think, after so long, that'll be harder and harder to do. So if someone watching is thinking about it, like, don't wait a second longer. Now's the time to do it.
Definitely. Please get started. I'm with you there. I started my career in radio and I loved that. Well, what I hated about radio is that there were so many gatekeepers, right? Yeah. And like you had to know someone who knew someone to get into a decent market, but podcasting really was empowering for the independent creative. Like you can start from nothing and build your own platform. And that's also like what Pod Sessions and like POD-sessed is all about, is just empowering indie creatives. I work a lot with indie podcasters. I was one myself at one point. I love listening to people as they start small and kind of grow their audience. And when I discovered Crime Junkie, obviously it was definitely large and it was growing, but it's seen tremendous growth like since I became a listener. And I'm just really happy and excited for you, for Britt, for the entire audience family. And I'm so grateful that you came and spent some time with me this morning. I'm so appreciative and I can't wait to hear what's next.
Well, thank you so much. I love being on. This has been great.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'm gonna say goodbye to everybody. How can they reach you if they wanna listen to Audiochuck shows or reach you personally?
Oh, so audiochuck.com is our website. It has all of our shows listed there. So that's a great place to keep an eye out for when we add some new stuff. And then on Instagram, I'm at indie-flowers.
Awesome. And I am on Instagram at @JHenleyBrown, or you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, all of the other stuff, Jasmine Henley Brown. This has been the first pod session. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Ashley. We'll talk soon.